So imagine two people, right? And they experience the exact same life-shattering event on the exact same Tuesday afternoon.
Like a major layoff or something similar.
Yeah, exactly. Say they both get called into a manager's office and unexpectedly lose their high-paying, highly prestigious jobs.
A total shock to the system.
Right. So person A walks out, processes the financial setback, and immediately starts restructuring their budget and sending out resumes.
Which is the practical, standard response you'd expect.
Exactly. But then person B walks out and undergoes a complete catastrophic psychological collapse.
Wow.
I mean, they don't just lose their income, they lose their entire sense of who they are.
Their whole identity just fractures.
Right. They spiral into this existential crisis that lasts for years.
Mm-hmm.
And today we are looking at a framework that explains precisely why this happens.
And it's fascinating because it actually has absolutely nothing to do with how much money either of those people had in their savings accounts.
Nothing at all.
No, it has everything to do with how their identities were constructed in the first place. We are essentially looking at the architectural integrity of the human psyche.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. We are exploring this fascinating ebook by Joseph Sack. It's titled Built from the Inside Out.
It's a brilliant read.
It really is. And our mission today is to completely rethink the metrics we use to measure personal progress.
Which is something we all need, honestly.
Absolutely. Because we are going to explore a sociological framework that explains why sometimes, when you look at your life and feel like you are drastically falling behind everyone else.
You might actually be doing something better.
Yes. You might be funding a radically different, structurally superior project. Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
Because society generally hands us this very specific blueprint from birth, right?
Right.
We are taught to build our lives exactly like a Hollywood movie set.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah, you erect the facade first, you secure the impressive job title, you finance the car, you get the apartment with the exposed brick.
Right, you curate the whole public-facing aesthetic.
Exactly. You make certain it looks fantastic for the cameras. And the underlying unspoken assumption is always that you will figure out the interior later.
Like you'll figure out who you actually are once the set is fully built and presentable to the world.
Right. But Sack argues that some people completely reject that blueprint. Instead of a movie set, they are building an earthquake-proof bunker.
A bunker, bro.
Yeah, they start deep underground, in the dark, pouring this massive concrete foundation where absolutely nobody can see it.
Well, so Sack actually categorizes these as two distinct development sequences.
Okay.
The dominant one, the societal default, is the outside-in build.
Which is your movie set.
Exactly, the
Right.
movie set. And the countercultural approach is the inside-out build.
The bunker.
Right. And the text positions this not as just some, self-help concept, but as a rigid lens through which we can analyze human behavior and
It
resilience.
changes everything.
It really does. Understanding the mechanical differences between these two builds drastically alters how you evaluate yourself, who you choose to trust, and, well, how you measure success.
Because the metrics are totally different.
Exactly. If you judge an inside-out builder using outside-in metrics, you will misread their progress completely.
So let's investigate the environment that makes the outside-in build so ubiquitous. I mean, why is society so relentlessly focused on the exterior first?
That's the big question.
It can't just be vanity, right? There has to be a structural reason why everyone defaults to the movie set.
Yeah, and Sack attributes this to the mechanics of what he terms comfort culture.
Comfort culture.
Right. But this requires defining comfort beyond its usual association with, like, physical luxury or laziness.
Okay, so what does he mean by it?
Comfort culture is a systemic psychological optimization for frictionlessness.
Frictionlessness.
Yeah. It is an environment where discomfort, uncertainty, and ambiguity are treated as software bugs to be patched immediately.
Instead of signals to be read.
Exactly. Instead of essential signals to be deciphered. In this environment, internal development, which requires intense periods of questioning your own values, facing your flaws, sitting with unresolved identity questions.
That sounds exhausting.
It is. It is inherently painful. It causes friction.
So society just incentivizes us to bypass all that friction by adopting prepackaged identities.
Right, because it's easier.
Yeah, it is much easier to let your job title tell you who you are than to sit in an empty room and, figure it out yourself.
That is precisely the dynamic Sack outlines. Comfort culture produces populations that are highly proficient at constructing visible stability, but they're entirely unskilled in generating internal substance.
Wow.
And this creates a mechanical problem in the psyche called a self-deficit.
The The self-deficit.
Right. When a person skips the foundational phase, they possess a hollow core. But as we know, nature abhors a vacuum.
So they have to fill it.
Exactly. To compensate for the terror of that internal emptiness, the individual engages in the compensation dynamic.
What does that look like in practice?
They build heavier, more elaborate exterior structures.
Mm.
They chase higher status, aggressively accumulate wealth, demand constant external validation.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, they're literally trying to fill an internal void with external mass.
So the external stability isn't just decorative. It basically becomes a prosthetic for a missing identity.
A prosthetic is the perfect word for it.
This completely recontextualizes the high-functioning, highly successful executive who is also plagued by chronic, inexplicable anxiety.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, they are terrified because their entire sense of self is pinned to variables they don't actually control. If the board of directors fires them, they cease to exist.
Right, because the markers aren't just attached to the structure, they are the structure.
There's nothing underneath.
Exactly. If you remove the social standing, there is no psychological floor to catch the person.
Mm.
The anxiety is actually a highly rational response to a structurally unsound architecture.
Because they subconsciously know that a stiff wind could level their entire reality. Okay, but I need to play the skeptic for a moment here, just on behalf of the listener.
Sure, go ahead.
Because getting a good job, securing reliable housing, and building a social network, those are basic survival mechanisms.
There.
We operate in a physical economy. We can't all retreat to a monastery to ponder our inner truth while our rent goes unpaid. I mean, there is immense utility in the outside-in path.
Oh, for sure. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, SAC explicitly acknowledges the utility of the outside-in sequence.
He does.
Yes, it is highly adaptive in the short term. It provides immediate shelter, it generates necessary capital, and it offers an incredibly legible social roadmap.
Meaning you just know what to do next.
Exactly. You know exactly what step comes next because the culture has paved the highway and put up bright neon signs for you.
Right.
The cognitive load of an outside-in build is actually quite low because the decisions are largely made for you.
You just follow the syllabus.
Yes, precisely. The danger is not in the initial construction. The danger is what SAC calls the deferred interior.
The deferred interior.
Right. It's an accrued psychological debt. The longer you delay building an internal foundation that is independent of your external markers, the higher the interest rate on that debt becomes.
That makes sense.
10 or 15 years into an outside-in build, the accumulated external structures, like the mortgage, the specific social circle, the lifestyle expectations, they become load-bearing.
So you can't just take a break to find yourself.
No, you can't. A person cannot easily pause to examine their foundational values without risking the collapse of the enormous facade they've built on top of it.
It's too heavy.
Exactly. The cost of dismantling the exterior to fix the interior becomes so prohibitively high that most people simply choose to never look down.
Which I guess works brilliantly right up until the point the choice is made for them.
Unfortunately, yes.
Because if the compensation dynamic forces people to keep building heavier facades over a hollow core, there is a physical limit to what that non-existent foundation can support.
A breaking point.
Yeah. So let's look at what happens when an anomalous event hits the structure.
Well, this brings us to the stress test problem.
Okay.
Under optimal sunny conditions, an outside-in build appears formidable. It projects power and stability.
It looks great on Instagram.
Right. However, its fragility is exposed under pressure. When a key external pillar is forcefully removed, like through a sudden job loss, a severe health crisis, or some kind of public humiliation, the psychological devastation is completely disproportionate to the actual event.
This is exactly what I was thinking about with my opening scenario.
The two people losing their jobs.
Yeah. The person who falls apart completely when they lose their job isn't just grieving a lost salary. They are experiencing identity death.
Because their self-definition was entirely outsourced to that role.
Wow.
SAC observes that the resulting destabilization is an unavoidable mathematical equation. The collapse is directly proportional to the amount of identity invested in the external marker.
There is a quote in the source material that perfectly captures the brutality of this.
Oh, which one?
SAC writes, a foundation built before the storm can hold the structure through it. A foundation built after the storm is often just rubble management.
Rubble management,
Yeah.
yes. That is the exact phase where the illusion shatters.
It sounds awful.
It is. The outside-in builder spends their post-crisis period just trying to piece together fragments of a shattered facade rather than utilizing the crisis as an opportunity for genuine foundational work.
They just want the pain to stop.
Right. They often just rush to build another slightly different movie set to escape the discomfort of the rubble.
So let's pivot and look at the inside-out builder facing that exact same hurricane.
Okay.
When someone has done the grueling, invisible work of building a psychological bunker, how do the mechanics of a crisis change for them?
Yeah.
Because here's where it gets really interesting, to me at least. It makes me think of a seasoned ship captain pulling in the sails during a squall.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah. The storm is still dangerous, right? They still experience the brutal tossing of the waves, the fear, and the material disruption. It isn't some superpower that magically prevents pain.
Right, they still feel it.
But the hull of the ship is structurally sound.
And that structural integrity is the key differentiator. An inside-out builder has formulated a value system and a self-concept that are totally decoupled from external conditions.
So their worth isn't tied to their job title.
Exactly. Their identity is not contingent on the market being up or their boss liking them or their social media following growing.
Right.
When the stress test occurs, they experience grief and logistical chaos, sure, but their core remains uncompromised.
Because they know who they are.
Right. Their response to the disruption is generated from an internal locus of control. They built the foundation when the weather was clear, so they have a safe place to retreat to when the weather turns violent.
But, and this is the crazy part, if this internal foundation creates individuals who are virtually untouchable during a crisis, why is society actively punishing them while they are building it?
It's a great question.
I mean, why is the inside-out builder treated like a complete failure for the first decade of their adult life?
It fundamentally comes down to an issue of faulty instrumentation.
Meaning what?
Comfort culture measures everything using a standardized outside-in ruler.
Wow.
If you measure the depth of a bunker using a tool designed to measure the height of a movie set facade, you will consistently generate false negatives.
Oh, wow. It's like you are looking up at the skyline for a skyscraper, seeing empty air, and just assuming the lot is vacant.
Exactly.
Completely missing the 10 stories excavated underground.
Right. You just can't see it with that metric.
Yeah.
Sack identifies this measurement error by pointing out what he calls the artifacts of interior construction.
The artifacts.
Yeah. These are behavioral patterns that the dominant culture diagnoses as flaws, regressions, or outright failures.
But they aren't.
No. They are actually the necessary mechanical byproducts of doing deep internal work.
Let's break down the mechanics of these artifacts. Why does doing internal work cause someone to look like they are failing on the outside?
Well, the first major artifact is withdrawal or isolation.
Okay, pulling away from people.
Right. Social performance, especially in a comfort culture that demands constant, friction-free interaction, it requires massive amounts of cognitive and emotional energy.
It's exhausting.
Very. So when an individual is engaged in intense internal construction, say they're questioning their inherited beliefs, dismantling toxic psychological habits, formulating original values,
They're busy.
extremely busy. They're running an incredibly heavy processing load in the background.
Like a computer updating its operating system.
Perfect analogy.
Right.
They simply do not have the surplus energy required to maintain a glossy social exterior.
So what does that look like to everyone else?
To the outside observer, this reallocation of energy looks like depression, antisocial behavior, or just a total loss of ambition.
It's an invisible expenditure of capital. I mean, they aren't doing nothing. They are funding a massive project that nobody else has clearance to see.
Exactly.
So what are the other artifacts?
Unconventional income patterns and missing standard milestones.
Okay, so not making the big bucks.
Right. An inside-out builder is not optimizing their career for maximum status extraction or the highest possible salary.
What are they optimizing for?
They're optimizing for autonomy, value alignment, and basically the mental bandwidth required to finish their foundation.
Which takes time.
A lot of times.
Okay.
So they might take a lateral career move, work part-time, or choose a notoriously lower-paying industry.
And to a culture that worships the relentless accumulation of capital.
It looks like gross financial incompetence.
Yeah, they look like they're failing.
Furthermore, because they are prioritizing this slow, methodical internal build, they routinely miss the culturally mandated deadlines for, getting married, buying a house, or achieving a certain title by age 30.
Which creates that horrifying social trap that Sack calls the double bind.
Yes. The double bind is the psychological gauntlet the inside-out builder has to survive.
Why is it a trap?
Because the culture lacks the vocabulary for interior construction, the builder cannot easily explain their lack of external progress.
Right, you can't just say, I'm building my foundation.
If they try to articulate that they are prioritizing internal alignment, the comfort culture translates that as a pretentious excuse for failing to compete in the marketplace.
You're finding yourself, and that's why you still drive a 15-year-old Honda and rent a studio apartment.
Exactly the translation. But if the builder chooses to remain silent to avoid sounding defensive, their lack of visible markers is immediately interpreted as laziness or a complete lack of direction.
So they are trapped either way.
They are trapped. There is no social script that legitimizes an unfinished exterior.
Okay, I have to challenge this concept, though.
Fair enough.
How do we differentiate between a genuine inside-out builder who is trapped in this double bind and someone who is just simply unmotivated, lacking discipline, and actively weaponizing Sachs' theory as a convenient shield for their own mediocrity?
That's the million-dollar question.
Because if there is no visible proof of the work, couldn't literally anyone claim they are just building their bunker?
Well, what's fascinating here is that Sack anticipates this exact critique.
He does.
He does. The differentiation relies on observing behavioral data over time. You have to look for internal indicators rather than external outputs.
Okay, so what's the difference?
A grifter, using this as an excuse, is still fundamentally tethered to comfort culture. They still crave the validation. They're just frustrated they can't achieve the external markers easily.
Right.
A genuine inside-out builder exhibits a measurable reduction in reactivity to external judgment.
So the person making excuses gets defensive and angry when challenged about their status.
Right.
Whereas the genuine builder is totally unbothered because they no longer respect the metric being used to judge them.
Precisely. Additionally, the genuine builder demonstrates an incredibly high tolerance for ambiguity and discomfort.
They can sit in the mess.
They can. They don't rush to manufacture a fake resolution like, taking a prestigious job they hate just to get their parents off their back, simply to relieve the social pressure.
But the imposter can't handle that.
No, the imposter cannot tolerate that sustained friction. They will eventually cave and try to build a cheap facade to stop the criticism.
This highlights the most insidious part of the whole process. I mean, it's one thing to endure a society that misreads your progress.
Sure.
But it is an entirely different level of tragedy when the builder internalizes those faulty metrics and begins self-misreading.
That is the real danger. Sack identifies self-misreading mid-process as the exact point where most inside-out builds are abandoned.
People just give up.
They do. If you are steeped in a culture that defines success entirely by exterior completion, you inevitably internalize that rubric.
You can't help it.
Right. The builder looks at their own life, sees the lack of conventional milestones, applies the outside-in grading scale, and generates a failing grade for themselves.
It's like they're taking an advanced calculus exam but grading themselves using a spelling bee rubric.
Perfect way to frame it.
They convince themselves they are fundamentally broken, not realizing they are just in the middle of a phase. Sack calls the lag.
The lag, yes. This is the temporal gap between the completion of the psychological foundation and the visible construction of the exterior life.
So what does this all mean mechanically? I feel like instead of thinking about buildings, let's look at this through the lens of software engineering.
Okay, let's hear it.
An outside-in build is like a tech startup rushing a flashy, beautiful user interface to market, right? The buttons look great, the animations are super smooth, but the back-end code is literally held together by digital duct tape.
It's a disaster waiting to happen.
Exactly. It looks incredibly successful right up until thousands of users log in at once, the stress test hits, and the entire platform crashes and burns. But the inside-out build is the engineering team that spends 3 years locked in a dark room, writing a flawless, highly secure, infinitely scalable back-end database.
And during those 3 years, they have zero user interface to show the investors.
Right. The investors, which represent society in this analogy, they look at the blank screen and just assume the developers are lazy and have done absolutely nothing.
That is the lag.
That is the lag.
Yeah.
The work is happening in the dark, in the code, where untrained eyes can't see it. But what happens when the back end is finally finished and they start building the front end?
That is when the transition to exterior construction occurs, and the phenomenon Sack describes as rapid acceleration takes over.
Rapid acceleration.
Yes. Once the inside-out builder achieves structural integrity, meaning they know their values, their boundaries are set, and they no longer leak energy constantly seeking external validation.
They finally turn outward.
Yes, they finally turn their attention to the exterior. But now the exterior is a conscious choice. It is not a load-bearing psychological crutch.
They aren't building a career to prove they have worth. They are building a career because they finally have excess energy to deploy.
And the efficiency of that deployment is staggering. Because the foundation is so robust, and their decision-making is no longer clouded by the need to manage a fragile ego, they execute with extreme precision.
Wow.
Sack actually notes that observers are often shocked when an inside-out builder suddenly seems to conquer their external goals, like career advancement, financial stability, healthy relationships, in a highly compressed time frame.
Like they just came out of nowhere.
Exactly. It looks like an overnight success or a sudden stroke of luck.
But it isn't luck at all. It is just the front-end UI finally being connected to a world-class back-end database.
Why?
It scales infinitely without breaking because the architecture was designed to handle the load from day one.
They entirely bypass the trial and error phase that outside-in builders spend decades trapped in.
That is incredible.
It is. The inside-out builders' choices are aligned, their discipline is consistent, and their resilience is durable because their actions are finally a true reflection of an integrated self, rather than just a performance for an audience.
So if you are listening to this right now and you find yourself looking around at an external life that feels chaotic, delayed, or just completely out of sync with the people around you.
Which is a very hard place to be.
It is. But if you know in the quiet moments that you have been doing the brutal, invisible work of excavating your own foundation, I really want you to anchor yourself to Sack's central thesis here.
Which is so important to remember.
An unfinished exterior is not evidence of failure. It is the architectural signature of a build sequence that refuses to prioritize a fragile facade over a permanent foundation.
Perfectly said.
If your social circle is confused by your lack of visible progress, understand that you are dealing with a measurement error in the culture, not a reality problem in your life. You are simply funding a different project.
And the practical application of Sack's framework extends far beyond self-assessment too.
How so?
It should fundamentally recalibrate how you evaluate the people you allow into your life.
Right, who you trust.
The mandate here is to stop reading people via static snapshots. Discard the job title, the zip code, and the curated aesthetic as metrics of character. You must read people longitudinally.
Over time.
Yes. Observe how they navigate friction. When an unexpected variable disrupts their plans, do they adapt or do they immediately seek a scapegoat?
That's a huge tell.
It is. When there is no audience to applaud them, do their actions align with their stated values? The stress test is really the only reliable diagnostic tool for identifying a hollow core before it collapses on you.
That is a critical warning, and I want to leave you with a final thought to examine long after this deep dive ends.
Go for it.
Expand this framework beyond your personal life and apply it to the macro level. Think about it. Our entire society evaluates its leaders, politicians, and corporate executives almost exclusively using facade metrics.
We really do.
We hand the keys to the kingdom to whoever has accumulated the most wealth, secured the grandest titles, and hired the best PR firms to curate their public image.
It's all outside in.
Exactly. Given that reality, how many massive cultural crises, corporate bankruptcies, and institutional failures are simply the inevitable result of outside-in builds finally encountering a stress test they couldn't buy their way out of?
A lot of them, I'd wager.
Right. And moving forward, how can you ensure that when you hand over the reins of your own future, whether it is deciding who to work for, who to vote for, or who to marry, you are choosing someone who has actually poured concrete in the dark?
That's the real challenge.
Because when the weather inevitably turns violent, a flawless movie set won't protect you. Keep building the bunker.